Today I want to talk a little bit about God being with us in the past and leading us into the future. And I also want to say a word about how I hope this channel is an opportunity to build and deepen community. Stay tuned. Hello, friends. Pastor Tim Westermeyer here, Senior Pastor of St. Philip the Deacon in the western suburbs of Minneapolis. Good to be with you, as always. Before taping this, Tim, behind the camera, and I were having a wide-ranging conversation. This happens actually very frequently, either before or after we've taped, about a variety of different theological issues. And between that and the conversation I had with Dave Robison from Japan earlier this week, and we'll link to that conversation here, I guess I'm reminded, first of all, that this platform is intended, honestly, to be a place of conversation, a conversation between me and you. And I want to remind you again, if you have thoughts or questions or things you'd like to address in future episodes, I really genuinely would love to hear what those are. Or if you have reactions to things that have been said or questions about them, I'd love to hear about that. The fact that we've now done our first in-studio interview, live interview, just over that way with Dave means that hopefully we'll be able to do more of those in the future. I have some ideas about people I'd like to bring in to have conversations with. If you have thoughts about that, obviously I'm open to them as well. So that's all a little bit of a preamble, just reminding us all that the purpose of this is really to engage one another, to have an ongoing live back and forth conversation. And I've certainly continued to enjoy it. I hope you are as well. Today, the topic I want to talk about is prompted by three things. One, our youngest son is a senior in high school, and here in Minnesota, I don't know if this is true where you live, most seniors have a big graduation party, so we're anticipating that and planning for it, which meant we got a bunch of photos out of when he was a little baby. And the second thing was that we just had our annual meeting here at church. We might even link to a tape of that here. I don't know if anyone's interested in that. And the third thing is the Old Testament reading from this past weekend, which came from the 30th chapter of the book of Deuteronomy. In each of those cases, those events sort of mark milestones or inflection points. With my son Andrew's, the photos we were looking at, honestly, my wife and I looked at those, and I don't know if any of you have had this experience, but we're looking at them kind of like, was this our life? Who are these people? They look so young. And how did we raise 4 children and get any sleep at all? With the annual meeting, we were reflecting on the last year, sort of talking about 2022 here at St. Philip the Deacon, and also looking ahead to the future. And with the book of Deuteronomy, the reading from Deuteronomy, that whole book is basically a long sermon by Moses, and the reading we heard was the very end of that sermon, where Moses is giving sort of his final words to the Hebrew people before they begin a new chapter in life. And they're done now with the wilderness wanderings after being freed from slavery in Egypt, and they're going to enter into the promised land. Moses is not going to go with them. He's going to stay behind where he dies. And again, it's another major inflection point. So in all of these three items, there's both looking back and looking forward. And one of the words that comes to mind for me regularly when it comes to the life of faith is the word perspective. And I think these three inflection points or events that have just happened, whether it's my son Andrew's pictures or the annual meeting or the book of Deuteronomy, remind me of the importance in our own lives of faith of paying attention to where God has been in our past, and also paying attention to where God is leading us in the future. And so very simply today, as a kind of spiritual exercise maybe, I might encourage you to reflect on those two questions and think back to a time in your life in the past and consider, am I the same person today as I was then? Or am I different? And if I'm different, how am I different? And how has God made me a different kind of person today than where I used to be? And if that is the case, if you have changed, if you have grown, if you've developed, pause to give thanks to God for how God has brought you to this place. And then as you look ahead to the future, also, again, give thought to, where do you see God leading you? Where do you see God directing you? What path is God placed in front of you and invited you to walk down? And maybe pause again there and pray that God will give you the strength and the courage to follow where God is leading. That's honestly what's on my mind today. I hope that's helpful. I will say, in a very limited way, what I just said about thinking about the past and looking to the future anticipates the theme we're going to be doing during Lent. So maybe we'll link again to the web page here at St. Philip Deacon about what we're going to be talking about. It's a prayer practice called the Examen. I'm not going to spend any time discussing that now, but if you want to read about it, you can there. Lent begins on Ash Wednesday, February 22nd. And so I'll likely say more about that in the next episode or two. But give some thought to the things I've lifted up today. And as I started by saying today, if you have questions or thoughts or input or reactions, I genuinely would love to hear from you so that we can continue the conversation here. Thanks for your time today. As always, be well, stay in touch, and God bless.